The sun rose over the shores of Lake Victoria on January 7th, 1945, in Maseno, Western Kenya. In that tranquil dawn, a child was born who would come to embody both hope and contention in the Kenyan political lexicon. That child was Raila Amollo Odinga, the son of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, Kenya's first vice president, and Mary Ajuma Odinga. From early on, his life was bound with politics, his father's activism, his mother's quiet strength, the charged air of colonial Kenya inching toward independence. As a boy, Raila experienced the ripple effects of national struggle at home. His father, Jaramogi, played a central role in Kenya's fight for freedom, eventually becoming vice president under President Jomo Kenyatta, but later resigning when disillusioned by unmet promises. These tensions exposed the young Raila to the interplay of power, principle, and disappointment from early on. His formal education began in mission schools in Nyanza province, Kisumu Union Primary, then Miranda Primary, then Miranda High School. Yet it was abroad that Raila's mind expanded more sharply. In the early 1960s, at around 17, he journeyed to East Germany. At the Herder Institute in Leipzig, he mastered German, then later attended the Technical University of Magdeburg, where he earned a Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering in 1970. Returning to Kenya, he tried his hands at academia and business. He taught at the University of Nairobi, worked in engineering ventures, and co-founded firms, including one known as Standard Processing Equipment Construction and Erection, Spectre Limited. He also joined the Kenya Bureau of Standards, rising to deputy director by 1978. Each role gave him experience, visibility, and a sense that change was possible, but also that it wouldn't come without struggle. Kenya's early post-independence optimism gradually gave way to centralized rule, political suppression, and the transformation or corruption of institutions. Under President Daniel Arap Moi, the political environment spun toward one-party rule. Raila Odinga emerged as a vocal critic. He believed in a Kenya where dissent was allowed, where political pluralism and accountability were not just slogans, but lived realities. In 1982, after a failed coup attempt against Moi's government, Raila was among those arrested and detained without trial. He spent 6 years behind bars, officially for alleged involvement, though many accounts emphasize that his detention was more about punishing outspoken opposition than legal guilt. He was released in 1988, but the scars of detention, personal, political, ideological, stayed. The late 1980s were turbulent. Raila was repeatedly under pressure, political harassment, arrests, restrictions. By 1991, fearing for his safety and believing in the power of international voices, he sought refuge in Norway. But political winds in Kenya were shifting. Internal and external pressure forced the Moi regime to allow multi-party politics. In 1992, Raila returned and contested in the general elections as part of the opposition. He won the Langata parliamentary seat. Thus began his formal legislative career. Once in Parliament, Raila's political path was less linear than many expected. He joined the National Development Party, NDP. In 1997, he ran for president under NDP, but came third. Found a loss, yes, but one that signaled he was no longer on the periphery. In the early 2000s, he made surprising alliances. His NDP merged with KANU, and he accepted appointments as Minister of Energy, 2001-2002, later Minister of Roads, Public Works and Housing, 2003-2005. Some viewed this as compromise, others as political strategy. He then joined coalition politics, helping form the National Rainbow Coalition, NARC, that defeated KANU in the 2002 presidential election, bringing Mwai Kibaki to the presidency. Many saw this as one of Raila's greatest plays, influencing from both opposition and within government. Yet the honeymoon was short. Disagreements over constitutional reform and power sharing led to friction between him and Kibaki. The 2005 constitutional referendum, which Raila opposed, believing the draft concentrated too much presidential power, further created political division. From that Orange campaign emerged the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, Raila's signature political platform going forward. By 2007, Raila had become a central figure in Kenyan politics. Running under ODM, he campaigned widely, promising change, devolution, better governance, and accountability. The results, however, were disputed, and Mwai Kibaki was declared winner. Raila rejected the count, citing fraud. The aftermath was brutal. Violence, loss of life, displacement, deep scars in Kenya's social fabric. International mediation, led by figures like Kofi Annan, eventually brokered a power-sharing agreement. In 2008, Raila became Prime Minister in a grand coalition government alongside President Kibaki. As Prime Minister, he had both higher visibility and more responsibility, even as struggles over mandate, corruption, trust, and coordination persisted. One of Raila's crowning achievements in this period was the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution, which introduced devolution, strengthened rights, checked presidential powers, and reformed many institutions. Though the journey toward implementing the reforms would be uneven, many regard the 2010 Constitution as transformative in Kenya's political and civic landscape. After serving as Prime Minister until 2013, when the office was abolished under the new Constitution, Raila ran again in multiple presidential races, 2013, 2017, and 2022, each time falling short, sometimes closely, and each time contesting the results or alleging irregularities. The 2017 election was particularly notable. Raila and his allies challenged the results. The Supreme Court of Kenya annulled the presidential vote, Africa's first such decision. In the rerun, Raila boycotted, claiming electoral reforms had not been put in place. In 2018, amid ongoing tension and polarization, Raila did something surprising: the handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta. The political reconciliation opened the door for the Building Bridges Initiative, BBI, which aimed to address national unity, constitutional reforms, and various governance deficits. However, though the BBI passed in Parliament, a proposed constitutional referendum was later struck down by the Supreme Court in 2022 as being procedurally flawed and unconstitutional in parts. In 2022, Raila again ran for president under the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition, selecting Martha Karua as running mate. He narrowly lost to William Ruto according to IEBC results, challenged the outcome, but the Supreme Court upheld the results. Behind the scenes of political drama was a man whose roots remained important. Raila's marriage to Ida Betty Oyu in the early 1970s was a partnership of decades. Together they raised 4 children: Fidel, deceased, Rosemary, Raila Jr. and Winnie. Ida played the role of stabilizer when Raila's political storms raged. Raila's values, resilience, activism, reform, made him a symbol for many Kenyans, frustrated with corruption, unequal power, limited opportunity, and ethnic divisions. Even opponents often acknowledged his mobilizing ability, his conviction, and his capacity to remain central in national politics for decades. His engineering background, early business ventures, and administrative roles added credibility to his claims on governance and development. On October 15, 2025, Raila Amollo Odinga passed away at age 80 in Kochi, India, due to a heart attack. His death prompted widespread national mourning, from the gates of Parliament in Nairobi to the shores of Lake Victoria in Kisumu, across Kenya and beyond. Leaders from Africa and the world paid tribute. Even in death, his legacy is complicated and vast. He never became president, despite 5 bids. He was detained without trial, criticized, celebrated, betrayed, and elevated. Yet many of Kenya's democratic advances, from multi-party politics in 1991 to the 2010 Constitution, bear his imprint. He was viewed by supporters as a hero, by critics as a divisive figure, by historians as central to the arc of Kenyan democracy. Raila Odinga's story is not simply about victory or loss. It's about endurance, the slow, grinding change in public institutions, the struggle for fair elections, the challenge of transforming expectations into reality. He walked a tightrope between principle and pragmatism. At times, alliances that seemed like betrayals, at others, unlikely unions that delivered progress. He was beloved by some, scorned by others. He had flaws, human errors, disappointments, but the arc of his life shows the power of refusing to be silenced, of believing that institutions matter, that law and process matter, and that the voice of citizens, when persistent, can shape destinies. With Raila's passing, Kenya stands at a crossroads. His absence leaves a vacuum of leadership, of expectation, of a moral bar many felt he represented. Who among the next generation carries forward the fight for inclusive governance, constitutional fidelity, political courage, and unity across ethnic lines? The institutions he helped strengthen may now be tested. The promises of devolution, of fairer elections, of rights must be defended. His life offers lessons that power without accountability is fragile, that speaking truth to power comes at steep cost, that democracy is not a trophy, it is a practice, and that even without the presidency, influence and reform are possible. Baba may have walked his final public path, but the journey he charted marches on in the hearts of millions.